Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome back to another SASH conversation from the couch. My name is Mark Drax, and today I'm delighted to be joining Stefani Goerlich, who is going to be talking at our conference a little later this year in Seattle in October. Stefani, a warm welcome to you.
Thank you so much for having me back.
Yeah, it's great to see you, Stefani. It always a pleasure. I'm just going to remind people that may be watching this that you are a clinical social worker, you're a sex therapist, and you specialize in working with gender, sexuality, and relationship minority populations. I was just reading that off my screen. That's not in my head. I just wanted people to have a rough idea. Stefani, listen, I'd love you just to jump right in. Tell us about the presentation you're going to be making at the conference in 2 months' time.
Absolutely. So my title is The Impact of Kink Stigma on the Diagnostic Process. It is a case study presentation. I'm looking at one specific case that I have been working on for going on 2 years now, and looking less at the client and more at the care the client had received prior to coming to me, at how clinical bias, how our own perceptions of what is normal or not, or acceptable or not, color how we diagnose and therefore how we sort of label and treat the people that come to us for care.
Fantastic. Stefani, you obviously have a lot of experience of this. Have you had a lot of clients come to you who have ended up on your couch saying, oh my God, I went to this therapist and she or he just didn't get it and I feel shamed? And have you had a lot of that?
That actually represents the bulk of my practice. I specialize almost exclusively in working with BDSM practitioners, kinksters, consensual non-monogamy. And a great number of my clients come to me because they've experienced stigma prior to coming to me, whether that is couples or partnerships seeking relationship counseling that comes from within a very monogamous centric heteronormative sort of perspective, whether that's somebody with anxiety or depression who's been told that their kink identity is a cause for their mental health concern. A lot of people just need somebody that understands their life without necessarily pathologizing their lifestyle.
I love to hear you say this, Stefani. I have a strong bias. I'm 54 years of age. I'm in recovery for sex addiction. It's why I do the work I do. It's why I help the men in the way I do. And I have men coming to me and they sit in front of me, and some of them are so full of shame, and they sit there and they pour their heart out with great fear of what they've been doing. And I look at them and go, okay, fun enough, I've done that. I did that. Yeah, I've done that. I've been there, and I quite enjoyed that. And let's not talk about what's going on now. Let's just go back a bit and see if we can delve more into the why you might be doing it, and see if we can join a few dots. How about that? And I so love de-shaming and not pathologizing things. So it's beautiful to hear. How did you discover this was your niche?
As you may know, as probably many of the viewers know, a part of training as a sex therapist is going through the SAR process, the sexual attitude sort of reassessment process. And for my own experience with that, I was watching my cohort over a number of days, and we would see interviews with people with developmental disabilities and how they approach masturbation. And my cohort would say, oh, that's so inspiring and that's so amazing, and we're so proud. We would watch videos of elder couples and how they managed to maintain intimacy and sexuality in their relationships. And my cohort would say, that's so inspiring, and I hope my partner and I are like that when we are old. And then we got to the 90 minutes that we got on BDSM and kink, and the whole energy in the room changed. And it became very giggly and very whispery, and there were people making jokes. And I was absolutely shocked at how quickly the respect dissipated. Right. And how quickly things went from inspiring and beautiful to prurient and naughty. And naughty has a place, but naughty doesn't necessarily mean bad or inappropriate or unworthy. Beautiful. And I really felt that it was important that those of us who have made healthy sexuality and healthy relationships our life's work be comfortable recognizing the full spectrum of what healthy sexuality and relationships can look like. And so that led to my first book, I just finished writing a sequel to that, and it has just become the center of my practice and my work. I think that all relationships are worthy of respect and dignity and celebration.
Stephanie, if 8 billion people could be taught to think like you, there will be wars would end tomorrow morning, and we would live on a very harmonious planet.
I appreciate the kind words.
Well, I think it's true. I think sexuality is at the root of so much pain on our planet. It is demonized. It is. We had Queen Victoria in her court. You had the Pilgrim Fathers. I mean, the Middle East. Well, let's not even go there. Sexuality in women, in particular, is so repressed. Men, if they do something a little kinky, it's frowned upon. There is so little freedom to actually practice what we feel safe doing in a consensual situation. So to have someone helping people realize that there's nothing wrong with it, and there may be something wrong if we're doing it for the wrong reasons, and that can be explored. But just doing these things does not have to be pathologized. I remember sitting in my very first treatment center in July 2004, and the therapist turning to me, talking about my love of latex and that kind of kinky side of BDSM. And he just said, "Oh, Mark, don't worry. You'll just, if you just keep working, if you keep your abstinence program, you'll just lose interest in it." And I sat there at the time, thought, okay, well, that will be helpful. That sounds easy. Well, I'm 16 years later, I've not lost my interest in it. And it is still a part of my life in a healthy way. Proud to sit here and admit that. So I hope we can inspire others to find that pride and recognize they deserve to have fun. Tell me, why do you think this is so important for sexual health?
I think that when clinicians fail to understand the full spectrum of what counts as healthy and what normal really looks like, then we are trained to diagnose the abnormal. And when we diagnose things as abnormal that fall within the spectrum of healthy, consensual, beneficial play, we can do a lot of damage. We wield tremendous power as diagnosticians in our field that I don't think is often taken seriously. We focus very much on the work that happens in the treatment room and less on the codes that are put on paper. But those codes mean something, and those codes impact people's lives. And when we fail to carefully consider the diagnostic framework we use for something, we can do a lot of harm. And so I think it's really important to pick apart one example of that and look at how we can do better in our assessment, which influences our treatment planning, which influences how we interact with our clinicians every single day.
Wow, your answer to that question should, in my opinion, become the 14th Amendment in your Constitution. I think if that were the case, again, it would bring a great deal of comfort to a lot of pain being suffered in your country and mine. Thank you, Stefani. That's amazing. Tell me, what would you like people in an ideal world to take away? What would you like people that might attend your, and by the way, correct me if I think little birdie has told me that for very understandable and health reasons, you sadly can't attend the conference to protect yourself in terms of COVID. Is that right? You're now going to do this virtually?
My son is a transplant patient on dialysis who was just this week added back onto the transplant list. And to keep him safe and healthy, that way he is ready to receive a transplant the minute we get the call, I have had to make the decision not to be present in Seattle in person as much as I wanted to be, because we want to make sure that when they call and say that they have a gift of life for him, we are in a position to receive that.
Stephanie, no one is going to question that, and least of all me. So I completely honor that. So therefore, when you are seen on a screen and people listen to your presentation, what would you like them to take away?
First and foremost, I want them to take away the understanding that it is okay to second guess ourselves, that it is okay to own our biases and to interrogate those. I think often the clinical ego turns our biases into treatment modalities, and we start to assume that the things that we are personally uncomfortable with are justified within the scope of the clinical world. So being comfortable saying, this makes me uncomfortable and I want to explore why, is a key takeaway. The case study that I'm presenting, without giving away too much, is a really niche kink that a lot of people are very uncomfortable with. And to see how prior clinicians have reacted to that and how that's informed their treatment planning, I think is really instructive and informative. Secondary to that, I really want to have participants and attendees walk away with an understanding that kink and BDSM and power exchange relationships are not intrinsically coercive or abusive, that they are not intrinsically maladaptive, and that all of these things can be beneficial, positive strengths in a client's life or in their relationships.
Fantastic. Again, huge thanks. I will be very, very sad that to not meet you, be able to give you a hug and listen to you in person. But this is certainly an area of deep interest for me. Stephanie, leading into heading up to our conference, is there this is your moment to plug yourself. Are you doing anything else anywhere? Do you have a website? I mean, you have your book, the Leather Couch, clinical practice with kinky clients. Anything else you'd like to put out there to help people learn more from you?
My website is boundtogethercounseling.com. I'm always accessible there for consultation, questions, hellos. I will also be presenting at the STAR Fall Case Conference in New York a couple weeks after the SASH presentation. There's a couple of webinars coming up. If anybody goes to my website, I keep a fairly current list of conferences and public speaking events, both in person and online, mostly online, that people can use to find where I'm going to be and what I'm going to be talking about next. I'm also pretty active on Twitter if anybody likes to communicate that way.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Stephanie, it's been such a joy talking to you. I love working with SASH and meeting people like you and working alongside in the industry people like you who have the client's interest truly to heart. So it's inspirational. Thank you for the work you do. And thank you for helping us and presenting at our conference. It's going to be wonderful.
Thank you so much for having me.
Stephanie, take great care. We'll see you online in just a couple of months. For now, God bless. Take care.